Hello friends! I would like to talk about reading and books today. More specifically, books I read last year. I don't know if you know, but I work in a library, so I am around books all the time. And honestly, I love it. It makes me so happy to be around them, to see the new titles coming out and to see which books are popular and things like that. It's just fascinating to me. My own relationship with reading is a bit weird because I can easily discourage myself from reading even though I love it. I try to read every day, so my reading hour is usually my lunch hour, and then sometimes if the book is really gripping, I will take it home and read it at home, but that doesn't happen often. The reason why I get discouraged with reading is that I'm a very slow reader. But I do, however, I read in English, and English is not my native language, so I believe that's the main reason why it takes me months to finish a book. But I'm here to tell you that it's okay. I feel that we often see people online who read like 20 books a month, whereas I read 20 books last year. And I did celebrate that as a very big achievement. Whatever pace you have to read books and enjoy books, it's okay. And I keep telling that to myself as well. I do follow some bookstagrammers and booktubers. I do love their content. I love that they talk about books, but sometimes it makes me feel so sad that I can't read as fast as they can. But then at the end of the day, it's okay. We all have different reading paces, and as long as we can enjoy the books, no matter how long it takes us to read it, I think we should still do it, and I keep reminding that to myself. Another reason why I wanted to film this video was to reflect on the books I read last year. So as I mentioned, I read 20 books. I do have this reading journal which I stuck with Animal Crossing stickers. So what I used to do, I would just write down the date started and the day finished and the title and the author. What I started this year was that I started writing some thoughts about the books. So that's what I want to do. I want to go through whatever I wrote about the books I read last year. I can see the first book I read last year was A Prayer for Owen Meany, and it feels like a lifetime ago. The reason I picked up this one was that there was a period of time when I really enjoyed John Irving's books. I read quite a lot of his books and I remember really loving them. And this particular one I haven't read, and I thought, oh, okay, I'll give it a go and see why I loved the other books. A Prayer for Owen Meany, it was like a roller coaster to me. Some parts of it, I was just flipping through pages fast, I couldn't put it down. And then some parts were so slow, and it just took what felt ages to read a couple of pages. What I say in my notebook is that I probably did not really connect with some of the topics. And the last thing I say there is that I really enjoyed the ending, which I read extremely quickly, and I will potentially pick up some other of his books to try out. And I say maybe one a year because they're quite big. The next book I read was called The Wonder Down Under. It was a non-fiction book about women's body. But yeah, what I say there is I really came to it without any expectations. A lot of things I already knew about by being a woman. The thing why I enjoyed that book was that I had quite a lot of questions, and that particular book gave me answers to those. It gave me reassurance on some of the questions, and I really enjoyed the style of writing. By the looks of it, last year I finished the trilogy by Haruki Murakami, and it was the 1Q84, and I've read book 3. I really devoured it. Even though it took me a month to read it, but apparently I read it much quicker than the first two parts. I apparently enjoyed it so much that I would like to pick up more Murakami books. I read quite a lot also in the past, and maybe reread some of the ones that I already read because I already forgotten them and I don't remember them. Then I read Volume 3 of Giant Days. That's a graphic novel which has a very beautiful art style. That was the main reason why I was drawn to it. I believe I still have some volumes to read. Third volume wasn't as good as the first two. I kind of felt like it was very fragmented and it didn't really make a lot of sense what was going on, but it could be my own fault because there was quite a big gap between volume 2 and volume 3. Yeah, but I definitely enjoy the art style and the humor, so I might pick up volume 4 and see how I feel about it. Then I read Carve the Mark Duology by Veronica Roth, and I read both of the books back to back, which like never happens to me. I never really read the series in one sitting. There's usually quite a lot of stories in between. But yeah, this one, me and my friend, we sort of have like a reading group of both of us, and we read that one for that, and we really enjoyed the first one, so we thought, oh, let's just finish off with the second one. I really enjoyed the world of it and the story, but I think it probably could have been just one book. The second book felt very slow to me. There happened a lot of things that didn't really matter to me. Yeah, so Carve the Mark, I enjoyed it at the time. I don't remember a lot from it, but yeah, it was nice to read a duology in one sitting. The book I read after that one, yeah, so the book I read after Carve the Mark is called The Binding by Bridget Collins, and just look how gorgeous it is. So as you can see, my book doesn't have the sleeve on it, so when I started reading it, I haven't read the blurb, so I did not know much about it. I knew bits, like I knew that there's the binding is related to books. That's all I knew, that there's gonna be some books, potentially some magic, and yeah, that's how I went into it. And I just want to say that I think the less you know about this book, the more you will enjoy it, because it took me completely by surprise. I did not expect it to be whatever it was, and I loved it. That was one of the books that I read like really quickly. I think it took me 2 weeks to read it, which is extremely quickly for me, and I loved it. I enjoyed every page of it, and I would like to forget it to read it again and experience it again. It's really not a heartwarming book. It will break your heart, it will make you ache. It made me ache. But if you read it, let me know, we could have a cry session together. The following book I read was Traitor to the Throne, which was the second book of Rebel of the Sands. I believe it was a trilogy, and I did not like it at all. Again, I did the same thing. There was quite a big gap between reading the first book and the second book, so I sort of forgotten what happened in the first book. I did enjoy the first book, yeah, but the second book, I just struggled with it. Picked it up wanting to like it a lot because I loved the world. I don't think I ever read anything that was set in the desert. I don't think I ever read anything with Arabic mythology, the genies and everything. So that was my favorite part about it, that all of that was in there. I decided not to pick up the third book because I just struggled with this one. And the trouble with me is, once I start a book, I have to finish. I'm not a person that can drop a book, so even though if I'm struggling with it, I'm gonna push through and I'm gonna finish it. So that's what happened with this book, and because I felt that way about it, I don't wanna experience the third book. So I'm just gonna have the story without an ending, which I don't mind because I don't even remember the story at this point. Then we have The Flat Share, and that was another book we chose to read with a friend. We wanted to read some romance, and this was recommended by somebody at work. It was easy to read, it made me smile. I love the hints about the modern life in London. It felt really nice to actually understand those hints because I've been living in UK for the last almost 5 years. So that was nice. Yeah, I didn't really like the characters and their relationship. I did not really feel their relationship. I mean, it was okay. So it was a contemporary book, so I don't often read them, and this one didn't make me crave for more contemporary books. I also read The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, and I also need to show you how beautiful this edition is. It's just a pleasure to hold and a pleasure to read. I was glad that it was a collection of short stories, so I didn't have to be as focused on it as with the whole big book. It was very hard to get into this book. I really wanted to like it, but just don't know, it didn't really flow for me. So what I enjoyed about this book was that it was quite nice to read the stories and recognize them from the adaptations. Some of the stories I loved more than others, and yeah, I might come back to this one just because it's just short stories, so I could just pick up one or two at a time and just enjoy them again. I have another non-fiction book, so that one's called Open: Why Asking for Help Can Save Your Life. This one caught my attention because of the cover. I think it was really beautifully designed and it looked stunning. I picked it up like that, and I did not know that she was a famous person. I think the book had some great ideas, which I quite enjoyed. Had a little break, made myself some tea. The next book I read was The Wicked Deep. My first sentence about this book was, anything that has magic in it has a big potential to become my next favorite thing. Even though it may be a bit too strong to say about this book, I really enjoyed it. I think that this book had a really good atmosphere. It's very interesting. I just read what I wrote about this book, and apparently I had very strong opinions about the ending, which honestly, no recollection of it. But yeah, apparently I wasn't happy with it. Then there were some epilogue chapters, which I even wish that they didn't exist because they made me even sadder and angrier, which now in a way makes me wanna reread the book because I would like to know why I was so sad about it. But overall, I enjoyed it. And then I started reading Shadow and Bone series. So I read first two of the first trilogy back to back, so Shadow and Bone and Siege and Storm. And at that point I just said that I'm enjoying the world. Yeah, I guess I could talk about Ruin and Rising, so that was the third in the trilogy. I googled this series because I was really interested in reading Six of Crows, and people do recommend to start reading Shadow and Bone because that's a really nice introduction to the world, to Grisha magic. Yeah, it was really nice world building and introducing of how things work. But I honestly did not like the main character at all. I did not connect with her. It was very hard for me to understand her motives, especially those that were related to her love interests. So I was a bit annoyed with her, but there were other characters that made things better, so I stuck with the trilogy. I mean, I think it was a pretty decent trilogy. And then I was very excited to pick up Six of Crows, which I actually also read. That was actually the last book I finished in 2021. Yeah, so I guess I could mention it now as well. So that one was an absolutely delightful book. So the first third of the book is pretty slow, but then the rest 2/3 are just, I could not put it down. I just had to read it as quick as possible. I wrote down that the twists and turns were delightful, and I was on the edge of my seat when the heist started, because Six of Crows is a heist book. It was just great, and I'm very glad that I read it last year, and I'm actually really excited to read the next one in the series. I think it's Kingdom something. Kingdom of Scars? No? Isn't that Crooked Kingdom? Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, so I'm excited to read it this year. Then we could come back to the others that I read. I read the Frankenstein this year. I actually made a reading vlog, and I will make sure to link that. Unfortunately, it wasn't an easy journey for me. It was one of those books that I just had to suffer through. I'm actually glad that I finished it, but honestly, I would never recommend it to anyone unless you have a better understanding of classics and you are a person who can enjoy classics, because I myself, I struggle with those. But I also think that I haven't met the right classic yet, so I'm not giving up on classics, and I think I would like to read at least one classic a year. So I haven't decided what I'm gonna read this year from the classics. Oh, then another one we have, which one I did not like. It was called Essentialism, the Disciplined Pursuit of Less. This was a non-fiction book, and I just want to read you a review from the Goodreads, which I think describes that book and my feelings towards it perfectly. Could have been 100 pages shorter without losing anything essential. I thought that was really on point. It just felt so repetitive, even though some of the ideas I thought were great and quite interesting, but for the majority of time I was just thinking, how many times are you gonna say that we need to do what's essential for us? You said that in the first page. Why do you need to repeat that over and over again? That was the one. I think that was my least favorite book of the year. Then I finished So You've Been Publicly Shamed, and that one was real fun to read. It was really entertaining. I am actually interested in other books by this author, mainly because it was so entertaining to read. I really enjoyed the way he included the stories and how he presented some of his ideas. Yeah, and I even say I would definitely read more books by this author, so yeah, I would be interested. Okay, and then I finished The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This book I started in May and I finished it in December. Oh, that was such a strange experience. So I started reading this book on the Libby app, so that's the library app on which you can get some ebooks, audiobooks, stuff like that. So I picked this up on there, started reading it, and I didn't realize how popular this book was on the app. Obviously, because I'm such a slow reader, I couldn't finish it in the 3 weeks I was given. And I was not able to renew the book because there were so many people waiting for it. So I just kept putting it on hold. It just meant that after every 3 weeks I would have to wait around 6 weeks or sometimes even 8 weeks to get that book again for 3 weeks and try and finish it on time. So I believe I had at least 3 times when I borrowed it. So yeah, it was weird to pick it up every time because I would forget what happened before. The way the story was written, it didn't really matter that I forgot because it would remind you of stuff. Overall, I enjoyed it. It wasn't as good as I thought it would be, but I think the writing was really beautiful, and I did mark quite a lot of quotes in this book. And I used to do that a lot, write down all the quotes that I like in the book in my journal, and it would be just something nice for me to look back at. And I sort of forgot that habit for a very long time. So this book was the one that reminded me that I should write down the sentences that I like from the books. Just after that I finished Six of Crows, which I already mentioned, and that's the new year, which is blank so far. So currently I'm reading 2 books, which I try to avoid reading multiple books at the same time, but because it doesn't really work for me that well, it's just happened. So I am reading All the Light We Cannot See, reading that on the Libby app again. It's quite convenient. I love that I can sometimes read on the tablet, and then I could open the book on my phone, and it just syncs together and opens the page that I was reading on the tablet, and vice versa. So I love that. I think I'm almost halfway through and I'm quite enjoying it. Okay, so I am reading Tower of Dawn, which is a 6th book in Throne of Glass series. So I sort of have mixed feelings about this series. When I started reading it years ago now, I really enjoyed it, and then at some point a lot of things changed and we've got a lot of new characters introduced, locations introduced. I was just a bit confused. With this particular series, I did take quite a big gaps between the books. So basically I think I read 1 or 2 a year. So this one I'm picking up after a very big gap. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. Haven't finished it yet. It is a bit confusing to jump back in without me remembering what was happening in the previous book. I just keep telling you that, but it's my own fault. I just already forgot what was happening. I have glimpses of some of the events. I like that the author actually mentions some of these events and reminds me of them, but I sort of wish that all of the series, the trilogies, whatnot, that they would have a page or 2 recap at the beginning of them. It would be so helpful to me. Just remind me of these characters. I don't remember them. So yeah, so those were the books I read in 2021, and those are the 2 books that I'm currently reading. It was really nice to talk about them and share my thoughts about them. I know I didn't go into detail about each book because I didn't want to make this video extremely long, and I'm sure there are better reviews online. I just wanted to share my own experience with them. Yeah, so this year I've put myself a challenge to read 22 books, and I don't know if that's gonna happen, but if it's not gonna happen, it's gonna be okay. I'm not gonna be harsh on myself because it's not a race. We are just all enjoying books while we're here on this planet. So it was really nice talking to you today. If you have any good book recommendations, you can leave those down below. I like to put those on my Goodreads and expect that I will read them in the future. I have a really long to read list. We'll see you soon. Bye!